Hello, welcome to another sound design workshop. In the previous video, we covered a lot of resampling and did quite a bit of sounds in Operator, did a bit of time stretching. I'm going to do very much the same in this video, but use a few different instruments and techniques. So I wanted to make a kind of almost granulated, arpeggiated sound. So we'll use the simpler in Ableton and the arpeggiator. I'm going to put in a sample of a percussion. So that would do, put that in there. And let's come out of here and load an arpeggiator. So we have this loop button here, which I'm going to activate. I'm going to turn on the arpeggiator. And I'm going to turn the steps on up to 2. So you have a distance of 12 semitones. And this step determines how high it goes up that path. My gate will obviously control the length of the note. Okay, so I've turned this loop on and I'm going to reduce the loop length. Now it starts to sound a little bit granulated. The filter is set to a low pass filter, and I'm going to turn down the frequency. I'm going to modulate it with the envelope. So I come into this page here where it says controls, and I turn on the envelope, and I can turn up the envelope amount here, and that's going to modulate the filter frequency with the envelope. Cool. All right, so I'm going to add a bit of spread just to give it a bit of width. I'm going to set up a bunch of parameters, do some automation on the timeline, and apply some audio effects using the Ableton stuff and maybe some Serum, and then I'll resample it down and see if we can get anything nice out of it. MIDI track. Okay, so the track is in C, and this particular percussion sample seems to be in C. I'm going to make that nice and long so I have a lot of room to make some changes. So first I'm going to start with the frequency. I have my automation line here. When I move the frequency, automatically sets that to there. So I can have a curve, so it can like build up and then maybe whip back into a lower. So I'm just going to make some frequency curves and get back to you. Okay, so I've drawn in some curves and also made with the pencil tool some little square movements here. I'll just play it back for you, but first I'll just take out the low end. So quite a nice bouncy, granulated arpeggiator type thing. So let's have a look what else we can automate. What I like to do when I make a new automation lane is if I right click here and go add lane for each automation envelope, and then I can see what I've done underneath. Click on my gate and then I can make some changes. So I'm just going to make some changes in the gate. So I've just made a few subtle changes there with the length. On these lower ones, it kind of almost stops the sound, and these higher ones, it lengthens it out, so it just gives it a little bit more shuffle. I'm going to put on a side chain. So I'm going to apply some audio effects now. I'm going to go into the melder production effects. See what we have there, a lot of multi-band things. So we can try a flanger, maybe the multi-band flanger. Quite nice. It smooths those corners, rounds the sound off quite nicely. I think it would be cool if we add a bit of reverb send from the Valhalla. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the sound. I'm going to have one panned to the right and turned down a little bit, and I'm going to change the EQ. So I'm going to take out some of the lows and some of the highs. So when they play together, this second one, I'm going to have the echo turned on. Also, I want to try a different effect here. I'm going to turn off the multi-band flanger and try the phaser. Let's just listen to that soloed. So I'm just going to tweak that for a bit. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken the pan to the center again, and I've added an auto filter with an amount of 100 and a ratio of 1/2. So this is going to pan the sound to left and right. And then afterwards I've added an amp, just the one in Ableton, and I've not touched any of the settings, just left it how it is. I've run it through a fade to grey in the send, run it through a reverb, and it's also running through the Valhalla. Just play that now, soloed with the other layer. Okay, cool. Let's have a listen with the track. Okay, I'm just going to record that now. Okay, cool. So now that that arpeggiator is in the audio form, I'm going to make some micro edits, cut it up, do some time stretching and some little tweaks here and there, use the sends, and I'll get back to you and we'll have a little look at what I've done. So in this particular part here, I've stretched it out and I've taken it down to 24 semitones and changed the grain size and turned the flux to 0. It's given me this kind of weird shuffle. What I can do is Command J and consolidate it. If I cut in between each little gap and make some little fades, I can actually almost make like my own little envelope shape with the volume, with the curves. One thing I like to do is maybe I'll take a section like from here. I can time stretch it twice, and then in one part maybe I'll have it set to texture, and I can make a cut halfway through so it separates into 2 clips, and then instead of doing automation and making the change with automation or recording it, I can just split it into 2 clips, and then on this second clip here I can turn this down, so then we get the variety that way. I like that movement but not the pitch, so I'm going to consolidate and move the pitch down. And I can move this transpose dial until it's in tune. Fade. Reverb. Can just Command D. Quite like this bit here. Take it all the way down to 48, turn the warp back on, select yes, take it all the way back to 0. In tones, kind of select transposition, which is pitch. Some random shapes. Some random pitch movements. Consolidate. Transpose. Make some cuts. And in each one have a different transpose. And then some different arrangement with these sounds. Okay, so let's have a look at some more of these edits I've made. We have a simple one here, it's just a reversed section. This has just been duplicated from here and put into a different position and also put into a different key. Sounds like this. Same again here. So nothing too crazy there. In this section I've stretched it out until it's changed the wave shape, and then I've made these little cuts as I showed you before. So here I've just highlighted the section I wanted to duplicate and pressed Command D like that. put a echo and a reverb over the top of it. These other sounds I've moved the transpose in different warp modes and continued to consolidate and process and continue to render the same sound over and over again while making changes. Solo them so you can hear them on their own. So I'll give you an example of how I do that. So I'll just find a section here. Okay, so like this section here, for example. What I'll do first is Command J and consolidate. So I do this technique almost 70% of my tracks. I use this technique to sculpt the audio till I'm satisfied with the movement or the pitch or the tone. It's a repetition of making changes in the transpose and the different warp modes, then consolidating and repeating the process over and over again until I'm satisfied with the results. So I'll just give you an example of how I would do that. So here is the sound we're going to be working on. Okay, so say I take the transpose down to a random value and then I can consolidate it. Now it's changed my waveform, and now it's been consolidated and rendered down to a whole new different file. When I make changes, it will make changes on that new sound. So if I take the transpose down again or up, we could change the warp mode and then consolidate, and now we have a whole new waveform. I could, for example, cut this, consolidate this second half, and I could time stretch this second half like this, turn warp back on, select yes, take the transpose dial all the way back to 0, textures, turn the flux all the way to 0 and move the grain size. It's a very random process. I might just take out just this small little section here. Let's go back to here. And I can do the same. I could stretch this. I could, for example, put an auto filter on here. Just give it its own channel. I could put an amp behind the auto filter to add some more color. Okay, so I've just moved this to here and I've taken the pitch down on this particular thing. another sound and do the same process. So I'm going to take this section. You can also time stretch manually with these warp markers, so I can make some points here, make these stretches like this. Maybe I'll change the grain size in this this particular clip. Also change the pitch. And I could just place that here and remove this. That could work quite nicely as a little fill. Could run it through a flanger. This sound here is quite cool. Could consolidate it. If I put it in beats and change the transposition, we could get like a glide going up to there. So I've just grouped them all together and added an EQ and a little bit of sidechain just to clear up any unwanted muck. Kind of darker now. Okay, so at this stage I will start to introduce some of the sounds from the previous video in this first section here and try to form a little bit of continuity between the first section and this second section. Okay, cool. As I've explained before, it's always good to duplicate a section, like repeat a whole section like here, which I've just copied and dragged here, and just made some slight alterations in the arrangement and some alterations in the pitch. So I've clicked on some of these clips and changed some of the pitch and the filter here, for example, like before this sounded like this. So I just changed the filter just to kind of mix it up a bit. Okay, so let's have a little listen through and hear where we're at. happy now. It's all starting to come together. These layers are all starting to work very well. In the next video, we'll be continuing in the same project. Maybe we'll get a chance to work on this rolling bass section. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video and hopefully see you in the next. Take care.